Thank you so much for joining me tonight. Let's start off with just a basic introduction about yourself. Can you say like your name, where you go to school, and just some background info about yourself?
Yeah, totally. So I actually just barely graduated in December. So my
Congratulations.
degree was in microbiology. I know, thanks. I was a microbiology major with neuroscience and chemistry minor. So the three realms of science. It was really fun. Yeah, I'm excited just to go forward in neuroscience. I applied in multiple neuroscience programs for PhD and we're waiting to hear back. So fingers crossed for that, really.
Yes, good luck. For PhD applications, when do you expect to hear back? Like, what's the timeline like?
Oh, good question. So between the February 6th and February 14th, so literally in a couple days, I'm gonna
Okay.
be I know. It's gonna be a fun couple days just waiting to hear back, checking my email every day probably. But
Yeah, exciting.
I know for sure.
Can you talk a little bit about how you got into research and what projects you're working on now?
Yeah, definitely. So my first neuroscience related research project was with the EEG in Dr. O'Hare's lab, and we were looking at how the brain reacts to emotionally valent sounds, like really happy sounds or like someone throwing up, and just like what our brain waves do in response. But since then, I've shifted over to Dr. Hutchins' lab, and we are focusing on open educational resources, like open educational resource textbooks for neuroscience at Weber State. And it's really nice because a lot of students that come to Weber State are first generation or like full-time moms and trying to get their degree and so forth. And so having an open educational resource where it's peer reviewed and just neuroscience based, that's kind of the main focus. But what I do is I mainly do illustrations of the brain. And so I have a lot of fun with that. I'll take like old brain scans or like old pictures of brain slices and draw the structures based on what we see there. So that's what I do.
That's awesome. And was illustration something that you had been doing before you got involved with this project?
Not at all. So I originally got involved in that project because Dr. Hutchins asked me to help write like the chapters. And then
Mhm.
he's like, "Hey, can you like turn these into illustrations?" I was like, "I'll give it a try." And then I fell in love with it. So that's
That's
awesome.
cool.
I know. So fun.
Do you feel like the work you were doing in the EEG lab kind of informed what you're writing about now, or how do you sort of get the information that you put into that textbook?
Good question. So we really just use like resources that we find in databases. So like if we're writing about ion channels, we find resources and like sources that we can base it off of. So it's pretty much just a big meta-analysis or
Mhm.
like other textbooks that we like bring further information in. Another side of it is we're hoping to like continually update when there's new research on topics. So that's kind of the idea. But the EEG lab really helped solidify my passion towards neuroscience, I think. And so that's probably the biggest role that it played.
Nice. And how long were you in that lab for, the first lab you researched in?
Yeah, the first lab was just like one semester because then the professor went on sabbatical. So I was like, okay, I'll look for somewhere else. And it worked out. It worked out. But I was very grateful for Dr. O'Hare. Like she was very patient. And I was like a little sophomore in college in like undergrad. So it was fun. It was lots of fun.
Awesome. It's great to have like such a positive experience with a mentor really early on in research. I feel like that can really make or break an experience or even just how you feel about doing research. So,
Yeah, definitely. Like having a positive experience early on really does impact just like the passion of neuroscience research.
yeah. And so going back to your work on the textbook, you presented on that at Society for Neuroscience, is that right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I did.
what did that presentation look like?
Yeah, nice question. So it was with like four other like female neuroscientists that we were doing the project with. There was one, Alexis did it on statistics of like the need for open educational resources, and then like three other girls, two or three, we all presented on different parts of like our research and so forth. And It was really fun. It was awesome. We just had we had one poster and we just cut it into three sections and we talked about like different parts. Like one of um Aaliyah, she talked about her ion channels chapter that she was focusing on, and Lindsay was talking about, I think it was glutamate. And so we brought our different parts. A lot of the research is done like by ourselves, like on our computers or other things because it's like a textbook. Like we don't need to be in person writing together. And so it was fun to hear what they were doing more closely. Yeah.
Yeah, exciting. And was
Yeah.
that your first time going to a research conference, or had you been before to either like Society for Neuroscience or other conferences?
Good question. That was like my fifth conference that I've been to. There was I've done a lot of conferences with microbiology because that was my major. And so it was the first neuroscience conference. So it was awesome. It was definitely more of my passion. I love little tiny microbes, but it's not something I'm super passionate about when it comes to like PhD research. So it was really fun to go to the Society of Neuroscience.
Yeah, I feel like Society for Neuroscience is such an interdisciplinary conference too, that even within like the umbrella of neuroscience, there's so many different topics and so many ways to bring that information in. Like I'd never heard of someone going to present about an educational resource. So that was like really interesting to hear about the work that you got to bring there and talk about. Because in my mind, like going to a conference is wet lab research or stats research, but just as we sort of expand the field in those directions, you still have to make educational resources available. And the way that people do that and develop those resources is really interesting.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, definitely.
so, what was your experience like going to Society for Neuroscience? It's in Chicago. Had you traveled that far for a conference before?
I hadn't traveled that far for a conference before, so the travel grant was super helpful for like all the funding. It was so fun. We went, it was great. I had, like I said, there was four girls and we had a great time. We just walked around town like when we were not at the conference and we went to fun places for food and so forth. But the conference itself was amazing. I loved it. Went to like we tried to stay as long as we could every day and like learn as many different things as we could about the brain. But I would say a lot of the research that other people were doing was going over my head. So I have a lot that I know I need to learn about like neuroscience, but I really loved it. It was fun. We like went and saw the Chicago Bean. Never been to Chicago, so that was fun to see like the bean and also just like walk around town. It was beautiful. I definitely loved Chicago. I was like, I would totally go back. I would totally go back to Chicago, but probably wouldn't be the same without all the neuroscience stuff. So it was fun.
Well, I think
Yeah.
it'll be back in Chicago in a couple years, so maybe you'll get another chance to go back there. Um,
Yeah.
so
Did you get to go this year?
I did. I wasn't presenting at the conference, but I went up with WashU, where I'm currently doing research. Um, and it was really cool. I'd only ever been to the Chicago Society for Neuroscience conference, which they hold over at Loyola, and it's a lot smaller. So this was like a really awesome experience just to go into that conference hall and see all of the different people. Like it was amazing.
Yeah, that is amazing. Can I ask what your research is too?
Yeah, I do research in genetic diseases of the retina. I work in an ophthalmology lab, and we're kind of specifically looking at a protein called CRX and sort of associated transcription factors that mess with photoreceptor development in the eye. So we are sort of an annex of neuroscience, but since the retina is a neuronal tissue, there's a little community there.
Yeah, that is so cool, Maya. I love that.
It's
What do you
really,
plan to do with that, like in the future?
I am planning on going to medical school, so I don't necessarily plan to have a career in research, but I was always like throughout undergrad, I was really interested in sort of the genetic tools of research and how different genetic diseases can affect quality of life. And so since I'm taking a gap year before applying to medical school, I was like, I should probably explore this interest further before I don't have a chance to really be deeply involved in research.
Yeah, that makes sense. Using gap year. for multiple interests. That's cool. I
Yeah.
love it.
And I mean, since I've been here, the way that, I mean, even just research doctors have like a really significant role in like helping people who have genetic disease, and like the way that clinic and research science go hand in hand has been like so cool to see. I love it.
Yeah, that is super cool to see. That's awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. Um, so apart from tabling and presenting at Society for Neuroscience, what were your favorite parts about being at the conference?
Yes, that's a great question. I think it was the second to last day. We went and just walked around all the booths, like the vendors and what they were selling, and just grabbing, free shirts and free pencils or whatever, but just looking at all that. And that was awesome. Like seeing different microscopes and just seeing the different like utensils that they use to cut up brains, like if you're doing brain research that way, like the wet lab version, and just all of that. That was awesome. That was really fun. I learned, so I have two younger sisters that are like in elementary school and junior high, so they're relatively young. And I learned about like a children's like competition that happens around the world, like internationally for neuroscience. So that was really fun. So just thought like learning about the different things that are going around the world. So and then I think one of my favorite moments was walking in and seeing the big NIH booth and just being like, oh my gosh, that's so crazy. Like it's like Disneyland. Anyway, it's fun. Good
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
So
Were there any like specific presentations or talks that you really enjoyed, or like anything that you remember?
yeah, good question. There were a number of talks about like neuroimmunology that I was really fascinated by just because of the background in like microbiology and neuroscience combined. Like it was super cool to just like learn more about like the neuroimmunology inside the brain. So those presentations really caught my attention. There was also a presentation I went to, I think it was a symposium, and it was related to just like I think it was like new pain management techniques by putting electrodes in the motor cortex.
Mm,
And that was really interesting just to hear. So just lots of new things to learn.
yeah, it's incredible to me what is going on in all the different corners of neuroscience research. Um,
Yeah.
so do you see yourself when you do your PhD, working in a sort of clinical capacity, or do you have sort of a plan for what type of research you'd want to do?
Yes. So I think it's very much in the air, up in the air still, but it depends on the lab that I get into. There's one professor that is studying all the different, let me think of how to say this. Like he's studying how different lesions affect different parts of the brain and trying to make a map of the brain in that sense. And that was super exciting to see. I loved that idea. Um, so that's one direction I maybe hope to take, just like taking lots of other like case studies and combining the research to figure out more about the specifics of different regions of the brain. So that's kind of what I see. I see more of like a meta-analysis side of things. And then hopefully in the future as well, I can get into clinical side so I can have kind of half and half, work in a clinical side of things, but do a lot of meta-analysis. We'll see. Honestly, Maya, it's just up in the air. We'll
Yeah.
see.
Mm. Never know
But
where your research career will take you. I feel like there's so many opportunities to like collaborate and get into things that you would never expect. So,
exactly. Yeah, there's so much. There's so much out there.
yeah. So when you were looking for PhD programs to apply to, what did that process look like?
Yeah, that's crazy process. So for me, a big portion of my life is family. Like I love my family. I always want to be relatively close to them. So I tried to find like PhD programs within Utah because that's where I'm currently living. That's where my family is, and just like try and stick there. So there was only a couple that were really a bit like really open. I think that was a that was a big determining factor of which schools I applied for this time around is which schools were close. And then also I really love the idea of helping undergraduates. So a PhD program that has like an emphasis on helping undergraduates. That is fantastic. That's fantastic to me. And then I always love like brain lesions, like when the brain goes haywire. That's what I want to know. That's what I want to study. So finding professors that study brain lesions, that's really important to me. One passion that I have is like traumatic brain injuries and like helping people heal from that. So yeah, I think those are probably the answers. Just like close to home as much as possible so I can stay and support my family even throughout my degree and like a good research lab with people that I can trust. That's kind of the idea.
Absolutely. It's a long time you spend at a PhD program.
Yes, it's a full-time job for a while.
Yeah, definitely. Super important to feel at home and in a good spot. Um, Great. So I want to talk a little more about your experience outside of research. So you have grown up in Utah, you go to school there, you're close to family. What was it like sort of going through college? What did you do in your free time? Like, how did you sort of organize your life around school, family, research, all the things?
That's a great question. Yeah, so I I really loved school. Like I was really sad when I had graduated in the sense of it's just a change of life, change of plans. Um, but I have a really good friend group, I would say. And so anytime there was free time, we would go and support each other. I have a couple of friends that are big into soccer, so we'd go and like watch their soccer games. And then I was in school with my sister, which was fantastic. I love that. Her name's Adelaide, and she just finished her associates. And so just like spending time with her was super fun. I love swing dancing, so I would go swing dancing on Wednesday nights sometimes when I wasn't overloaded with homework. And I just love like rock climbing and being outside, stuff like that. So I don't know. I think I feel like my life was pretty average when it came to like outside of outside of homework. But I would say that I really did just love the people I was in classes with and like the people I was friends with just during that whole time. So I had a great network of support. I could give a lot to like my parents and my family. So, and also just like the network of friends. So it's really fun. Good stuff.
That's amazing. I mean, it sounds like you had a lot of hobbies and a really good experience, which I don't think is necessarily the most average college experience. So, I mean,
Oh, thanks.
I'm really happy that you had a great time and it sounds like you're in a really good spot, which
Yeah.
is
What is your biggest hobby, Maya?
um oh, that's a good question. I really like hiking. I would say I do that a lot. I also love making art. So usually if I'm stuck inside, I'll be like drawing or painting or something like that.
You do like sketching? Oh, painting as well. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
I make zines, so I was like for a while I was getting really into graphic design and just making like these little books, but more recently
Little
I've
books?
yeah, I make cookbooks.
Oh, cookbooks. That's cool. Like you draw the art for the cookbooks?
Yeah, these are more of like a digital graphic thing. I don't have one nearby, but I like sell them at a bookstore in Chicago, so I put them together and I go and like drop them off.
That's awesome. I love that. That's super cool. Well, maybe you'd send me a picture of it in an email sometime.
I I actually, when I was in college, I made a lot of graphics for my neuroscience department as well. Like all of our sort of little, they weren't really for like educational purposes, I guess, but I made the little drawings for like the different neuroscience concentrations and like cute little graphics for like our emails and things. So I feel like art and science have always been like very closely connected for me as well.
That is super cool. Like doing a whole bunch of graphics designing for neuroscience. That's undoubtedly a very useful skill.
And
So,
I mean, I feel like it's such a visual sort of field, at least certain parts of neuroscience. Like
yeah.
they really go hand in hand in a way that is not necessarily the same for, like right now, I'm in a very molecular biology, biochemistry heavy environment. And
Mhm.
I feel like while it is still very conceptual, when I was in a neuroscience focused program, I was drawing a lot of like concept maps and it was very sort of visual and representative and like literally anatomy focused. So
Yeah, exactly. No, it's very, very like image based in a lot of ways, especially the things that were too small for us to see. You have to draw it out.
in order to kind of make them make sense. Do you feel
Yeah.
like drawing or like now that you're working on illustrating parts of textbooks, do you feel like that has helped you learn the content better? Or is it
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I was recently just doing a like a set of three coronal like images, coronal sections, and just how much I learned about where like everything is in reference to another. There was one image that looked like a dog, like a face of a dog, and I was like, wow, I've never realized that the brain at one section of it looks like a dog, or like another part looks like it has like the heart. Anyway, it's just fun. There's just lots of things I didn't realize that the brain could look like, but then also learning about like the LGN and MGN, like, or the different structures inside the brain and like what the globus palate. Anyway, there's just lots of little structures that I didn't really like picture in my head until I'm like drawing a whole sequence of coronal images and just realizing how they change throughout time. It's fun. It's good stuff.
I feel like it's like on the one hand, you can look at a brain and everything sort of looks the same, but once you have a sense of the different landmarks, it sort of becomes a much clearer picture of like where everything is, where the different glands and cortexes are.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great way to put it. It becomes just a better mental image.
Mhm. So, thinking of another question to ask. I feel like we've talked a lot about your research experience. And as you sort of gear up for your to hear back from PhD programs, I don't want to keep sort of like hammering down on that issue. But when you have you done any interviews yet, or are you still waiting to hear of your like invitation for interviews?
Yeah, just still waiting to hear. Just still waiting. I know it's crazy. I feel like
Uh,
I'm trying to hopefully just stay busy because as soon as the 6th comes, like February 6th, I'll be like, oh no, like every day checking the email. But it's just fun. It's fun to just prepare. I think one of the biggest blessings of this time is just being able to do things I haven't been able to do in 4 years because of school, just to be able to like relax extra or like clean the house super, super well, things like that. So I don't know. We'll just have to see, Maya. We'll see. Maybe I'll have to take another year. If I take another year, then
who knows?
it happens.
Sure, you'll do
But
very well. I believe in you. Seems like you
thanks.
know what you want to do and you're in a good spot.
Well, I hope so. Do you have your eyes on any specific medical schools?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really interested in schools that have kind of a genetics focus. I have been interested in WashU, of course. I'm really
Mhm.
interested in Mount Sinai and Columbia as well.
Truly. That's
They
awesome.
have like a very extensive computational genetics research department. And they're just doing a lot of stuff over there that I'm really interested in. But I'm kind of looking at a lot of different schools, mainly less so than the school itself. I'm really interested in places that have like genetics, good medical humanities focus, and I'm
Like service
medical
or
humanities
like classes?
like social studies, but in the
Okay.
realm of medicine. So like philosophy, sociology, things that sort of center the human experience and not just the sort of technical medicine content. Um,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of schools that have great programs for that as well.
Yeah. That's awesome. It really sounds like you know what you want. And I'm sure that helps a lot to slim down the schools that could really provide the genetics basis that you want.
Yeah. I feel like there's still so many schools though. So I'm kind of in the same boat. Like I'll apply and see where I end up. And I asked about the interviews thing because I really feel like from at least the PhD students I work around and some of the med students who do research around me, I always hear that the conversations you have during interviews are sort of the experience that people have um, talking with people who go somewhere when they're deciding if they want to go to that school can really make or break the perception of that environment and really help understand whether or not you'll be successful in it. Um, so,
Which makes sense because we're very like socially driven. So
right.
if there's like a first conversation that goes very poorly, like my perception of the school probably is going to go down. But if it's like very positive experience, I'm like, okay, I'm a great fit. Let's do this.
Or even just like if the sort of vibes of the people there or the values are not aligned, I feel like that says a lot about whether a program that sounds good on paper is going to work out, sort of personality wise. And I was wondering, in any of your research experiences, or even more broadly in other things that you've done, how have sort of the mentorship and social elements of it shaped your experience?
Yeah, that's a great topic. Just in general, I feel like mentors really do shape the future. Like I said, my first mentor being Dr. O'Hare.
Mhm.
She's a female neuroscientist that has done amazing things. Like she travels to India often, like every year to teach about the brain to monks and stuff, and just like spend time there and just hearing her stories is it really is fantastic just to hear everything she does. But then also Dr. Hutchins, he's like almost, I think he's in his 80s, like he's getting up there in age, and he's just spent a lot of time helping other people find their place in neuroscience. And I think that is really the best part about neuroscience is just what it doesn't really matter what we study as long as we help other people like find their passion and their dream and find their home in neuroscience. So I think mentors have really like shaped my understanding of like the best way to use knowledge is to serve others with the knowledge that we gain and to help them grow and fall in love with knowledge as well. So yeah, I would definitely say my neuroscience mentors have made a huge impact in my life and their encouragement. Like when I was starting to shift of like, okay, medical school or PhD school and just hearing their insights on why they chose PhD and so forth. Like, oh, so fun. Good stuff.
Absolutely. I feel like I had a lot of conversations like that when I was getting ready to graduate. And even at this past SFN, I talked with the my old like mentor, faculty advisor when I was in Neurosci. She's the professor of a lot of neuro classes I've taken. And I was sort of going through the same thing of like, do I want to apply to a PhD program or keep staying with MD, and sort of talking with somebody who is further along in their career really helped me understand what that will look like and what it can look like for me and whether or not I kind of want to be on that path. I feel like talking with people really helps me clarify my understanding of what a certain path might look like.
Yeah. And how much it fits to your dreams and stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we are coming up on half an hour, so we can sort of start to wrap things up. I love to finish with sort of an open question to you. What would your advice be to undergrads or people sort of in your position getting ready to go to graduate school, or just applying to undergrad even? What advice would you have for them based on your experience throughout college? What are your do's and don'ts, or what would you want them to sort of come away from this interview knowing?
That's an insightful question. I think my first thought would just don't lose sight of the things you love. Like when we're studying so much or we're preparing for exams or thinking about the future, like we can lose sight of just being present in the moment with the people and the things that we love and the activities that we love. And so just continually like doing something you love every day will just keep that passion for neuroscience, keeping that passion for education alive. That's my biggest first like recommendation. Just don't lose sight of the things you love. The second one is just to be consistent every day with with your goals. Like a little tiny section of goal, like doing a little bit of your goals every day. And so there were so many times where I would just say, okay, I can do 10 minutes of this today, but just setting your eyes on that goal and getting it done. That will be that will be super important. Yeah. So I would say those are my two biggest biggest recommendations that you can do it, everybody, you can do it. So thank you so much, Maya. It's been honestly wonderful to talk to you and just get to know you more. But thank you so much for reaching out.
Yeah, it was great talking with you too. I think that's a really great note to end on as well. Just you can do it and stay consistent is something I've had to remind myself a lot throughout my journey as well. Um, and thank you so much for making the time. It was great speaking with you, Avalon.